New York every winter evening always carries with it an indescribable mystery and bustle. The neon lights reflect through the thin layer of snow, creating a multicolored picture in the heart of the city that never sleeps. In the Brooklyn district, where rows of typical red brick houses are crowded together, Emily Carter lives a simple but meaningful life. Even though she is over 70 years old, she still maintains her agility and joy in every step. Emily is a symbol of a generation that has experienced many historical changes but still maintains her altruism and indomitable spirit. Emily Carter was born and raised in Brooklyn. This neighborhood not only witnessed her first steps in life, but also the place she has been attached to throughout her life journey. In her younger years, Emily was a nurse at the local hospital, caring for countless patients with all her love and responsibility. After her husband passed away from a sudden heart attack 20 years ago, Emily raised 2 children alone. For her, Brooklyn is not only a place to live, but also a place that holds all the sweet and painful memories. Now that her 2 children are grown and have their own families, Emily devotes her time to helping the community. She is a small but compassionate woman. Every day, she prepares warm meals to bring to the homeless in the area. These dishes are made from food donated by neighbors and support from local charities. Every morning, she rides her old bicycle through the snow-covered streets to the familiar charity center. For her, this is not only about helping others, but also a way to stay busy and meaningful. That day, as usual, Emily woke up very early. Her small kitchen was lit up at 5 a.m. She prepared a large pot of soup, full of vegetables and chicken, a dish she knew the homeless would love. As the soup boiled, the fragrant aroma filled the small kitchen. Emily divided the soup into small containers and placed them neatly in the basket of her bicycle. She put on a thick coat, a hand-knitted scarf, and an old woolen hat before leaving the house. The snow began to fall more heavily as she cycled to the charity center. The roads were covered in white snow, but that did not deter Emily. When she arrived at the center, she was greeted by the bright smiles and gaze of the people she had helped. They called her the Brooklyn Fairy for her kindness and dedication. That afternoon, after finishing her work at the center, Emily returned home by subway. For her, these trains were not only a means of transportation, but also a time for her to relax and reflect. She brought along a set of woolen knitting needles to make the most of her free time. On the crowded train, she often sat quietly in a corner, attentively knitting each stitch, occasionally looking up to size up at the people around her. That evening, when the snow was still falling outside, Emily entered the subway station in a relaxed mood. She chose a stone bench on the platform, took out the wool, and started knitting a new scarf. For her, each scarf was not only a small gift, but also a heart and love she wanted to send to those in need. The cold winter air could not reduce the warmth in her heart. Not far away, in the darkness of the train station, a tall man was quietly waiting. It was Statham, the famous actor who was always hunted by flashbulbs and public attention. But tonight, Jason just wanted to find a quiet corner to enjoy his rare freedom. He was wearing a black hoodie and jeans, his old sneakers covered with a thin layer of snow. In his casual attire, he looked like any other ordinary New Yorker. Jason chose a secluded corner near the entrance of the train station. His sharp gaze swept over the other passengers, but then stopped at the image of an old woman intently knitting. There was something about Emily that made him feel warm and peaceful. He couldn't explain why, but the image evoked memories of his beloved grandmother, who had been his greatest spiritual support when he was young. Meanwhile, the train station was bustling as usual. Passengers hurriedly passed by. The schedule announcements rang out regularly, But somewhere in that space, something special was quietly taking place. Fate, with its mysterious arrangements, was preparing for a fateful encounter between two people who seemed to have nothing in common. A small old woman with a warm heart and a strong, experienced man were on the path to intersect to create an unforgettable story. The subway arrived, the train they had both been waiting for. Emily Carter boarded the train, choosing a seat near the window where she could look out and feel the silence of the city as the night fell. She put her bag on her lap and opened a ball of yarn. Her deft fingers began to move the needle back and forth, creating perfect stitches. Each stitch was a part of the peace she found in life, a reward after long days of caring for the homeless at the charity center. But no one knew that in that moment, in a crowded subway, another story was silently being written. Marcus, a man who looked ordinary, nothing special from the outside, but had a cunning nature, was standing near the door of the car, deliberately observing everyone around. The subway trains during rush hour were always full of passengers. The murmur of people's conversation mixed with the sound of the wheels running on the tracks, creating a chaotic soundtrack of New York City. Inside the train, passengers stood close together, most of them with their heads down, wearing headphones or staring at their phones. Outside the windows, the streetlights shone in, dim and hazy. But inside the crowded train car, a danger was about to arise. Marcus, with a furtive gaze and the patience of a professional, leaned against the wall of the train car near the door. He did not seem to be in any hurry, but in his mind, an elaborate plan was being calculated step by step. He could clearly see that the old woman sitting by the window was still knitting, completely oblivious to the people around her. Her small handbag, lying quietly on her lap, was an ideal target for his theft. Marcus scanned each passenger, assessing their vulnerability. They were all too busy with their own lives to notice what was going on around them. He approached Emily's handbag, his hands moving slightly, calculating meticulously. He knew that his actions had to be quick and precise, otherwise he would be discovered immediately. When he bent down, the bag was still within reach. His long, slender fingers began to dig into the bag, searching for something valuable, a wallet, a phone, or a piece of jewelry. His goal was not the bag, but something valuable that could be sold quickly, enough for him to make some easy money. But the moment he began to rummage inside the bag, something unexpected happened. A strong hand reached out and grabbed his wrist, stopping his theft immediately. Marcus was startled, but before he could react, a deep, decisive voice rang out. "What are you going to do?" Jason Statham stood right behind Marcus, his eyes as sharp as a cold blade. His muscular body was tall, forming an impenetrable barrier between Marcus and Emily's bag. Marcus turned around, his face quickly turning into panic. He hadn't expected anyone to notice him. All his plans had suddenly been shattered, and he felt like he was trapped in a trap of his own making. Jason didn't let go of Marcus's wrist, his eyes still fixed on him. He wasn't someone who could be easily defeated, but in this situation, he knew that he had no chance of escaping Jason's control. "This action of yours is not wise," Jason continued, his voice full of authority. "Do you think an old woman like her won't notice?" Marcus tried to pull his hand back, but the more he tried, the tighter Jason held on. Jason's strength was like a steel clamp, making it impossible for him to escape. Fear began to spread through him, but he couldn't afford to lose face. He looked around, noticing the attention of the other passengers on him. "Get your hands off me," Marcus said, his voice trailing off in a spiteful tone. "You don't know who I am." "That's right," and Jason replied, without hesitation. "I know you're a thief, trying to steal from an old woman, and that's something I can't stand." At that moment, a scene unfolded. He turned his head to see Emily, still sitting silently with her bag in her lap, but her eyes were fixed on him. Her calmness made him feel as if he had been seen through. "Thank you," Emily said softly, but her voice was like a slap in the face. "But I didn't think he was that kind of guy. It was just a moment of inattention." Jason turned to look at her, surprised by her calm reaction. "Aren't you scared?" Of course," she replied, but her face still had a gentle smile. "But this life has taught me one thing. Always face difficulties without giving in." Marcus felt a chill wash over him from her words. He hadn't expected the old woman to be able to see through everything, and her calmness was what confused him the most. He had never faced anyone like this before, and it seemed that, at that moment, he began to realize that what he had done was not just an act of theft, but an act of betrayal of everything that was right in life. "Okay, he's going to pay for this," Jason said, turning to look at the passengers around him. Some of them had already stood up, taking out their phones to call the police. "Don't do that," Marcus said hastily, seeing the situation getting worse. "I just wanted to make some money." Jason didn't let him finish. He gently pushed him towards the train door without any mercy. "You can't keep living like this. It's time for you to pay the price." And Jason turned to look at Mrs. Emily, his eyes softening, a gentle smile on his lips. "Are you okay?" Mrs. Emily nodded, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I'm fine, thank you very much. But thanks to your help, I realize that I can't always stand by and watch. Thank you for protecting me." Jason nodded, saying nothing more. But Jason's entire action was captured by a woman on the subway. All the passengers could see through their phone screens was a strange moment where a famous star like Jason Statham was talking seriously to a strange man, while an old woman was knitting, her eyes full of sympathy and compassion. As soon as the live stream was posted, the attention immediately focused on this video. On social media platforms, no one could stop talking about what they had just seen. Followers started commenting and sharing the live stream, and the video immediately became a phenomenon. "Jason Statham on the subway? Did this really happen?" Such comments flooded social media sites. Within minutes, short clips from the live stream were widely shared. People began to search for more information about the man in the video. From small clues, they began to suspect that the man was Marcus, a notorious criminal in the area. Old photos of him from old newspapers and news websites began to surface, along with information about the robberies he had committed in the past. "I can't believe it. Is it really him? Marcus, the one who robbed a jewelry store in a famous robbery 10 years ago?" One person commented. "That's right. I've seen him in the crime reports too." Marcus was arrested for that robbery, but was released for unknown reasons. "I can't believe he's standing in front of Jason Statham like that." The post about this incident quickly went viral. Comments about the strange encounter between Jason and Marcus kept popping up. But what is remarkable is that not only were there comments about Marcus's criminal past, but such curiosity about why Jason decided to help a criminal. People began to ask each other, did Jason Statham, the famous movie star, really help Marcus? Or was he just playing the role of a supervisor? Would Marcus change? Or would he continue his criminal ways? However, while social media was exploding, comments about Marcus were still non-stop, and curiosity about whether he really wanted to change became even stronger. Meanwhile, information about Emily was also searched for. People quickly realized that she was the one who had helped so many homeless people over the years. People began to call her Brooklyn Fairy in their statuses. People who had never heard of her before now began to seek out the charity work she had done. They began to search for more stories about her and shared them on different platforms. Although the video only captured a small moment, it touched the hearts of thousands of people and made them reflect on kindness and forgiveness. Meanwhile, in addition to the mixed reactions online, Marcus was facing tension in the cabin. He could feel all eyes on him, from the suspicious eyes of passers-by to the strange looks from the passengers on the train. But the worst thing was that he knew that his life would no longer be peaceful, whether he wanted to change or not. He had become a public target, and this could end his fragile hopes. Marcus turned to look at Jason, who was standing next to him and still silently observing. Jason seemed to have noticed his anxious thoughts, and for a moment they faced each other in silence. "You can't run forever, Marcus," Jason said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "This isn't a game. It won't be easy. But if you really want to change, the price can be high. But at least this is a chance." From Jason's words, Marcus sensed a truth that he had never dared to admit. Not everyone saw him as a bad person. Not everyone around him judged him only for his past mistakes. And no matter what, he couldn't go back. As soon as the train stopped at the next station, Marcus felt his heart in turmoil. He wanted to get off, wanted to run away from everything. But when the train doors opened, security guards and even police officers were waiting for him outside the tracks. The post about this incident did not stop at the comments of netizens. News sites quickly reported on this video, along with pictures and information about the strange encounter between a famous criminal and one of Hollywood's biggest action stars. People began to debate this story. Was Jason Statham really helping a criminal, or was it just a strategy to attract attention of the public? Reporters began to seek more information, calling charities to confirm information about Emily, about the work she did in the community. A few stories from people who had received her help in the past were also brought up. Along with that was the question of whether Marcus was really ready to change. And then, like a media storm, everything seemed out of control. From videos circulating on social media, from articles and interviews with the people involved, the story of Jason Statham, Emily, and Marcus became the center of attention of the whole city. It was not just a story of crime and redemption, but a story of faith, forgiveness, and hope. The biggest question in everyone's mind at this time was not whether Marcus would change, but whether they themselves could change. After witnessing the actions of these people,